I wanted to find out more about it because I was skeptical of it. They found out a little bit about me, that I had an MBA with an emphasis in finance and investments. They wouldn't even give me the information to look at it. They were very convincing because they had monthly statements they printed out. It was all completely and totally bogus. But my friend was not allowed to disclose the details to me, and so it was very hard to find out what was actually going on. And I at one point encouraged him to pull out his initial investment and let the earnings grow. And he didn't realize that he was being greedy, and that these were just totally fake paper profits, and he lost it all in the end. And he said that he learned a lot about himself, he and his wife, in the process. And I think that's unfortunately a very expensive form of tuition that no one needs to go through. My brother-in-law one time came to me and he said that he had some guys that he was in contact with who had a bunch of relics they'd recovered from the Titanic or something like that, and they were going to start a museum, and they needed some money for that. And it was limited to a very small number of people. And that, did I want in, to this limited circle of people? Run away from those things. Real legitimate investments want to talk to and attract capital from as many different people as possible because it lowers their cost to borrow or get funds. Number 4, understand that there are worldwide capital markets. There are billions of dollars chasing good investments worldwide every single day. They'll talk about the biggest exchange or the biggest market in the world for foreign exchange. Well, that's really just so they can invest in other things and buy other things. But the bond market is massive. It's huge. If you're a company of any size and you can tap that market, massive worldwide available capital for legitimate companies. Equity after that. The equity market is much smaller than the bond market, much more well known. We talk about it a lot more, but it's actually a lot smaller than the bond market. There are venture capitalists out there. Before you get to the venture capitalists, there are angel investors that you usually find about locally. You can look them up online, and they specialize in funding startup companies, and they kind of know what to look for, and you have to put together a business plan and go pitch to them. But there are whole classes of people out there that are waiting for you to bring ideas to them. There are mortgage lenders. There are commercial banks. There are loan sharks and hard money lenders. There are already a lot of different people who want to offer money for investment to legitimate things that are out there. And so if the investment that's coming to you isn't taking advantage of these, you should understand why, particularly if it's large in nature. With small things, a lot of times the small ones, the startups, they won't have access to all those. But there's something to keep in mind, that there are these worldwide capital markets, and why hasn't this venture tapped into them? It probably indicates a lack of legitimacy if they haven't. The next thing is, if an investment advisor ever uses the word guaranteed about an investment, I mean, there are a couple of caveats. One is there were these things years ago called guaranteed investment contracts, but that was different. Those were just, they would insure some payments and stuff. But I used to be a registered investment advisor, and one of the things they hammer home in the test that you take is that you can never use the word guaranteed. There is no reason to give you a return on your investment if there's no risk involved. And there can't be a guarantee when there is risk. I had a family member, a friend, and he had a buddy that was an investment advisor, and this investment advisor talked to him about this real estate trust thing, and it was 10% a year, and it was guaranteed. And I tried to explain, I can't remember if I told my brother-in-law before or after this. The deal was that this guy had mentioned to him that it was guaranteed. That was not only illegal, it should have been a massive red flag that he should have run the other way. I don't think the registered investment advisor he didn't know that the whole thing was a fraud. He had a bunch of his clients he invested in it, and it actually drove him out of the business when they found out that the real investment manager had totally embezzled all the funds. He didn't know. But anytime anyone uses the word guaranteed, it is illegal, and there's no way it can be true. Thing number 6, if anyone offers you money to pay simply for moving money around, it's typically some form of bank fraud. There's no real business benefit. You should be able to understand where your money is going to get used, what it's going to buy, how they're going to take that and resell it for more, how they're going to take an asset and make something and sell that. Understand the business need behind your money, because if they're just saying, hey, will you take this and put it in this account and write a check to somebody else and you can keep X percent, we laugh about those offers from Africa, from people saying, can you basically help me launder money? This is money laundering. And I had an experience where I was friends with a guy who was a small business broker, and he had somebody who wanted to buy a hardware store that he was selling. And to get financing, the new owner of the hardware store had to come up with a certain percentage of equity, I think like 30% equity, and they were going to give him a 70% loan based on all of this hardware that was in the hardware store. He didn't have 30% equity, and so people were going to give him money, put money into his bank account temporarily, so when they went to check, they'd say, oh, you have enough in your bank account, okay, and they would just pull the money back afterwards. Well, that's bank fraud, right? To under false pretense, present information. Well, so I had this guy. He invites me to lunch one day, and he's got his buddy with him, and they're talking about how some guy at work was being a jerk because he wouldn't take a check from them and turn around and deposit it into this guy's bank account for him. And they couldn't do it because they were associated with the deal. And I'm sitting there going, this guy had been my friend. We played golf and stuff. We played sports together. And here he is asking me to commit bank fraud. And I ended up, I don't think I ever talked to him after that again. But the bottom line was he was asking me, he was going to write me a check, put it in my bank account. I was going to write a check to somebody else. And that's how they were going to trick this bank into lending this guy money so he could buy the hardware store. Anytime someone asks you to move money around for them, it's bogus. Last sign, anytime people attempt to gain your trust based on their religious position or affiliation, there's a guy I know, he's an attorney, he used to give talks about fraud, and he said very typically when someone is disreputable or dishonest or is trying to take advantage of you, they will tell you what their role is in their religion or try to gain some trust based on that in the first 15 minutes of their conversation. So be very careful because that's a pretty common thing to try to do. I hope that's helpful. Take care and be safe with your money.